Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Carl. I'm a recovery coach here at Capital Recovery Center. This is our Freedom Fridays meeting. An article I have here is Facing Your Fears. It says can play a pivotal role in your recovery story. Since fear often becomes a barrier to healing and transformation, fear of failure, fear of living without substance, and often fears can create seemingly overwhelming obstacles on the recovery path. However, the decision to confront these fears is often a turning point in reclaiming a life of sobriety. In recovery process, it can become clear that only one thing standing between a person and lasting freedom from addiction are these fears. And as with any fear, the more you face it, the more it diminishes, leaving room for a healthier and more fulfilling life. Tackling these fears allows you to discover new strengths as you embark on your recovery journey. And I can relate the part of it says like fear of failure and fear of living without substance, and that was something that it created a barrier for me getting into recovery because my life consists of on a yearly basis, using drugs and alcohol, and that's something I did on a daily basis, and fear of not having that and who I would become without it, and like fear of the future. I think a lot of us, well, for me anyway, fear of the future, fear of the unknown, and it kept me stuck in the disease of addiction. It says understanding the role of fear in recovery. Addiction thrives in avoidance and isolation, feeding off the fears that keep you trapped in harmful cycles. It's only by pushing through these fears that real growth happens. It says why fear is common in recovery. Fear is an incredibly common experience in recovery because recovery itself is a journey of change, and change brings uncertainty. For many addictions become a coping mechanism, a way to numb pain, avoid difficult emotions, or escape from the pressures of life. As a result, the thought of giving up this familiar destructive crutch can be terrifying. Hmm. I don't, I proofread this a little bit, but like I can relate to a lot of what this is saying. And it says for avoidance, right? So that's one thing that I've been working on and seeing through a recovery process. Avoidance has been coming up a lot because I avoided everything, right? I avoided my responsibilities. I avoided my emotions and feelings, and talks about numbing my emotions and feelings with drugs and alcohol, and the uncertainty of like I talked about earlier is like the future, right? And right, if I stay stuck in the future and like focused on my past and I'm not enjoying the present, um, you know, I'm not going to get anywhere. I've learned that and through this recovery process where I have to stay in the present moment. And it's something that I didn't stay in is just for today, right? Let me focus on today and let me deal with the problems and situations that come my way today, and I can focus on tomorrow when it shows up. Um, so like I have to be, and that takes practice, staying in the moment, staying in the present. But I know for me, um, I don't have that much anxiety anymore, right? I don't have that much depression. It lowers um, these symptoms of anxiety and depression and overwhelming thoughts. If I can just stay in the moment, it lessens that anxiety and depression and stuff like that. Says fear can arise from the question, what will life look without substance? The unknown is intimidating, and you are asked to face that uncertainty head on in recovery. Navigating unfamiliar territory can stir up anxiety and doubt about your resilience and ability to stay sober. Additionally, facing emotions and trauma that are masked by substance use is daunting. Recovery requires confronting deep seated pain and emotions that may have been avoided for years. For some, the fear of fully feeling emotions and navigating them without substance is overwhelming. Yeah, I can really identify with that. Um, you know, because the more we fear living a life without substance, right? Now we have to, it talks about facing our feelings and emotions head on, right? Like now we don't have substance to rely on to avoid and numb and not deal with our problems in the past, traumas, and all this stuff that we first and the foremost use drugs and alcohol in the first place. Now that's stripped away from us. Right now we have to really, because I've learned too, like emotions and feelings and past things that happens and trauma and stuff like that. That stuff doesn't go away. It doesn't go away if I'm using or if I'm clean, So like I can deal with my problems and my situations and stuff like that better without using substance alcohol. You know, I know I create problems even worse. I make things worse when I use. So you have to push through these fears of the unknown, and because if I stay stuck there, like eventually I'm going to die from active addiction. That's like the end result. It says the impact of fear on progress and growth. Fear is a barrier between where someone is and where they want to be. If you don't address your fear, it has the power to keep you stuck in the cycle of addiction. Even when you know, let's see, those patterns are harmful. Avoiding the challenges and emotions that come with change can halt. It says growth requires stepping outside of your comfort zone, but fear can make those steps feel too risky and painful. Fear can also lead to self-doubt. When questioning your ability to rebuild relationships and maintain sobriety, your confidence lowers and prevents you from taking leaps of faith. Facing trauma can be intimidating. However, true healing becomes impossible if the fears prevents you from addressing underlying issues without the courage to process these emotions healthily. You can remain trapped in emotional habits that fuel addiction and unable to develop the resilience needed to thrive in sobriety. And talks a little bit about facing traumas and where the true healing becomes is like facing your fears and facing my situations head on. And like I've learned too, like I can't do that by myself, so I have to trust someone, right? I don't have to trust everybody, but I have to trust someone. And just being vulnerable and open up and being honest and stuff like that. Like I had to change everything about me, right? Not just drugs and alcohol, right? But like my behaviors, my thinking, my perception, um, and like really addressing my fears of what's really going on with me, and like addressing that with somebody else that I can trust and get a better perspective on things, right? Because I always try to run off my own juice. I try to get through life on my own, right? And I try to heal and deal with things my way, and that never worked out, right? I never saw professional help. When I did ask for help, I only did things that I was willing to want to do. I wouldn't really take a suggestions and really apply it to my life. I would listen, but not apply action, right? And fear kept me stuck in that cycle of active addiction, right? Because I was locked and loaded in my selfish, self-centeredness ways, and it just caused me a lot more pain, a lot more suffering, and I was causing a lot more damage in my relationships. So like fear kept me stuck, and until I like stepped out in faith, that's another thing, right? So the principles, right? I can talk about fear, but the opposite is faith. So like I had to step out in faith that first I had to stop using, and then I continued to work on myself, and I started to build faith in myself first, right? Because I seen it start to work in my life. Like when I came into recovery, like I seen other people recovering and doing things and having fun and having fulfilling lives and just having a so-called normal life. And I didn't think that was possible for me, right? I didn't think that was going to happen for me because for many, many years, my life consists of jails, institutions, and ultimately it was going to be death. And I came very close, but like I didn't have morals and values and beliefs and dreams and goals, and I didn't have none of that stuff. So like I didn't think it was possible for me until I stopped using drugs and alcohol, and then continued to work on myself and I press into uh, not staying stuck in my fears and pressing into the faith part of it and just going forward and not going backwards and just doing the right thing for the right reasons. I started to change, I started to grow, and I started to believe in myself. And then fears lessened, right? They just don't go away, right? But like I have coping skills, I have people that can help me and guide me get through what do I do fear today, right? And it's not much, right? It's not much than it was before. So like I am a work in progress. I am changing. I am growing, and I can see anything is possible for me today. Let's see here. It says common fears in recovery. Fear can be a constant companion in recovery. Understanding these fears and breaking down how they inhibit your growth can help you navigate your recovery journey. Fear of relapse. After experiencing addiction and achieving sobriety, the idea of falling back into old habits can be terrifying. Some people fear that despite their best efforts, they could slip up, lose their progress, and return to the cycle of substance use. This fear can be paralyzing, causing people to question their ability to stay sober constantly. While this fear is rooted in a need to protect oneself, it can also create immense pressure, making it hard to relax and recover. The constant worry about relapse can eat away at confidence and lead to a victim mentality, causing us to question whether long term recovery is needed and possible. And yet, relapse, it's a healthy fear. That's another thing I learned too. Like, fear can control you, right? But like, it can be a healthy fear. Like, yeah, I have a healthy fear of relapse. Like I don't want to go back to active addiction, right? Because I already experienced that life. I already lived it for so many, many years. And like now I have a taste of sobriety and like I experienced the gifts of recovery and like I don't want to go back to that person. Right? I don't want to go back to that life. I have a fulfilling, happy, fun, content life today. And that's all through the process of recovery and not staying stuck in fear and pressing more into the faith part. And, because listen, recovery can be uncomfortable. Life is uncomfortable, right? So, like, I have to just keep pushing forward because I don't want to stay stuck. I don't want to stay stagnant. Fear can keep me stuck and isolated, right? And avoiding my emotions and feelings, avoiding my problems, and not taking accountability for the way I am today. So, like, I have to be open and honest and have to share that with people. It says fear of change. Recovery by definition requires change. Behavior change is in mindset and changes in relationships and lifestyle. For many, the fear of change comes from the uncertainty that change brings addiction. While harmful in many ways provides a certain level of normalcy, you know what to expect from substance use, even if it's harmful. The idea of stepping into the unknown without substance can feel daunting. Um, I think this article is talking about me, right? So like it says provide a certain level of normalcy, like the lying, conniving, the stealing, and the using. It was a sign of normalcy, right? I already lived that life. I was living like that for years, so it was comfortable, right? I didn't want to step out and try to do things different because it was uncomfortable to not use drugs and alcohol and keep on repeating it. I'd rather stay stuck in the midst of the active addiction than press out into recovery because like it was some kind of normalcy. Like I was okay, right? Fear. That's what it was. I was fear of not using drugs and alcohol and who I'm going to be becoming, or if I'm going to be happy, or am I going to have fun? Am I going to have a life? Like all these what ifs, right? Kept me stuck using drugs and alcohol. But first and foremost, I've learned like I can't use. For me, I can't use any type of substance, right? And I'm not just talking about drugs and alcohol, right? Addiction goes into many areas of my life, right? You know, it can be gambling, sex, food. You know, there's all kinds of types of addiction that make us try to make us feel good, right? And that can cause harm just as much as the drugs and alcohol. You know, so my thought process, my behaviors, the way I treat myself, the way I treat others, that also goes through the process of um, being in addiction. So I had to change all that stuff. I had to change all that about me until I came into recovery. I started to work on myself and see my patterns and knowing that it's just not about drugs and alcohol. It's about all these other things of my fears and defects and shortcomings. And, it goes way deeper than just the substance use. It says the fear of change is not just about sobriety, but it's also needing to rebuild your life. It can mean finding new ways to cope with stress, addressing unresolved trauma, and forming new relationships. Change requires letting go of the unknown, letting go of the known, and embracing the uncertainty. And for many, these feel like stepping into unfamiliar territory without a safety net, leading people to cling to old patterns even when they no longer serve them. Yeah, I heard for myself and some others that I've talked to, are good friends of mine, um, the uncertainty, right? We don't like change. For me anyway, I like routine. I like the same things over and over again because I know what to expect, right? I don't like a monkey throwing a wrench in my day-to-day life, because we rebuild ourselves in here, right? As before, like I can get frustrated, I can get angry, I can cause harm, and I can cause conflict. Right now, I have recovery, and I have the principles that I can apply to these situations. I can actually go throughout my day without using, right? But like I can go out throughout my day and just be happy and content. I have a choice today, right? I can have a choice to be miserable, or I have a choice to be happy and content and joyous and free, right? I have a choice today. As before, in active addiction, I didn't have a choice. Well, I did, but it was wrapped up in the disease of addiction. I was using, and that eliminates any types of choice. It taught a disease of addiction and then drug use, and it um, restricted me from moving forward in life, and it just kept me stuck in this vicious cycle. I couldn't change, I couldn't grow, and I couldn't move forward until I like put it down and start to press into the faith part and see the hope that I can get clean and stay clean and face my fears without any type of substance. It says fear of failure. Recovery is typically not a straightforward path, and the fear of failing, whether by relapsing, not meeting goals, or not living up to expectations, can weigh heavily on you. This fear is often tied to perfectionism or self esteem, where someone may believe that if they fail, it reflects their worth. The fear of failure can be so overwhelming that it discourages people from fully committing to the recovery process. They might be afraid to try because they terrified of what it would mean if they didn't succeed. The fear also makes it difficult to forgive oneself for past mistakes, Instead of viewing setbacks as a part of the learning process, your fear sees them as confirmation that you are not capable of lasting recovery. Yeah, like if I have setbacks, or if I let myself down, or my expectations are not met, right? I'll take it as a learning process, right? I don't see it as failures, right? Because I know I'm not perfect. I make mistakes, right? I fall short. Um, but I have a program that I can like get back on track, and I have people to help me and guide me and show me other ways to navigate. I don't just give up because I failed. Uh, I don't keep that in my head. I didn't fail. I have to find a different way to move forward. It's just a learning process, just like anything else. But I can stay stuck in this self pity, or like um, you know not pressing into for goals and stuff like that. Like fear can keep you stuck, right? And like I've learned that if I fail, or if I have a, let's say, let me say setback. If I don't live up to somebody else's expectations, or if I make a mistake, I don't have to stay stuck in that. I just have to navigate some other way to move forward. It says strategies for overcoming fear and recovery. The beauty of recovery is that you can begin to see fear as your biggest motivator and supporter, adjusting your perspective to see the other side of your comfort zone as where you thrive, and push you to bravely face your recovery fears, knowing that embracing the fear can help you achieve your dream life. There are realistic strategies to help you overcome fear and take the steps to sobriety. Says the beauty of recovery is that you can begin to see fear as your biggest motivator. Yeah, man, use it as um, to push you through this process of recovery, right? Not to keep you stuck, um, because fear can kill us. It was um, keeping me in a cycle of active addiction. And like now I can address it. Um, with people in recovery that can help me and guide me and show me the way, and show me a different perspective and a different way to live. And that's all through doing work. That's all through reading like articles like this. That's all through working on like step work. Like I'm in a 12-step fellowship, so I find out what my fears are. First off, I have to identify what they are, and then I can find the solution. If I can't identify what they are and understand them, how am I going to receive the help, or where am I going to go look for my help? So identifying and understanding, and then find the solution, and finding the help that I need to continue and to move forward through this process of recovery. Because listen, strategies for overcoming fear and recovery. There's all types of ways. There's all types of ways, and I found people in recovery to show me the way and to break free of these fears. And now I am living a different life. I'm living something different, and I'm physically changing, I'm mentally changing and growing, I'm spiritually changing and growing, and I'm living a different life because I faced my fears, because eventually it was going to kill me. But that was our Freedom Fridays meeting for the day. My name is Carl. I'm a recovery coach here at Capri Recovery Center. Until next time, we'll see you later.